inspired song for today. We welcome Reverend Dr. Paul Hasselbeck with your formative faculty. Dr. Paul Hasselbeck is a metaphysics authority and has a major role in bringing unity metaphysics into the 21st century. And I can honestly say from taking Paul's classes and hearing some of his talks, it has resonated deeply with me how he's modernized and brought things forward so beautifully. With a genuine passion for clarity and precision, Paul guides us to awaken awareness and deepen our understanding. He is an international speaker, a workshop leader, a teacher, and metaphysical coach. And as I shut down my slides and you bring your slides on, Dr. Paul, welcome.
Well, I got to click all the right buttons, don't I? Marilyn, that was quite a tribute to dads. And then when you finished, I thought we should add one more. And it has a double entendre. We should have doodads. So let's get romping. I'm going to share my screen. I just need someone to acknowledge that you're seeing my setup screen, and then you're seeing the side that says, thank you for inviting me, because I certainly am grateful to always be invited and thought of. And whenever I hear those introductions, I want to say, who's that? So as we get romping here, I want to remind everyone that I have a website, paulhasselbeck.com, where you can find out where I'm speaking and teaching. I have a podcast, metaphysicalromp2.com. And if you ever want to reach out to me, and I mean that very sincerely, you can email me at alberthasselbeck@gmail.com. And as usual, I'll be providing these slides probably to Cheryl because she's my major contact point. And you can use your cell phone too to take pictures of any slides you want. As you already know, well, we're going to be talking about your formative faculty. And in case you didn't know it, it's the power of imagination. And to give you a little roadmap of where we're going, I'm going to talk about the basics. The basics are things that I think it's important that I share at the beginning of most every service, because you never know, I never know who's going to be there, if there's going to be someone who's never heard me before. Then I'm going to do just a little bit on the 12 powers and then the power of imaginations. So I really do want you to sit back and relax and not only seek to understand. Belief is not encouraged. Yeah, I should say belief is encouraged, but not required. And remember the importance of questioning unquestioned answers. It's usually our answers that get us in trouble. Unanswered questions are far less dangerous than unquestioned answers. And I find this next quote from Gospel of Thomas comforting. Let one who seeks not stop seeking until that person finds, and upon finding, the person will be disturbed, and being disturbed will be astounded and will reign over the entirety. So if for some reason I say something and your response to it is to get disturbed, consider that a good thing. And then Charles Fillmore, in a worker's lesson that wasn't published, said this. Jesus said, you must know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And we've all heard that. And if you're like me, I thought that meant the truth found in the Bible. But Charles took it a little further. He said, the truth about yourself, because it really is the truth about ourselves. When you know who and what you really are, it is truly freeing. And of course, whenever I do a talk, I need to talk about what I mean by G-O-D. And I'm going to begin with a little different quote today. And this is from Eric Butterworth that my friend Reverend Geo Downer from Hawaii shared with me recently. God is spirit, present in its entirety at every point in space at the same time. I have tried to say that myself, but never as well as Eric said. Think about that. That spirit is present in its entirety and at every point in space at the same time, meaning you don't add up God to get the totality of God. And so for me, based on Myrtle, God is it, neither male nor female, but principle. And then Charles said, yet there is but one I am. It cannot be cut into parts. It is principle. And why is this important? It's important because you are so much more than a drop or a wave or a part of the divine. You are the divine. In fact, the I am is the metaphysical name of the spiritual self, as distinguished from the human self. So you see, you truly are fully human and fully divine. And this is the truth about ourselves that sets us free, that we use to free ourselves. And then we want to remember the ego, that's your personality. My personality is what I refer to and you refer to as my I, the I. And Charles says, the ego is man, and by reason of its divinity, the ego makes and remakes as it wills. So you can make and remake yourself anytime you want. And in fact, if you look back over your life, you've probably done that. Like me, it feels like there's been several versions of me over time. And then from Matthew, and Jesus came and said to them, all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. And Charles and Myrtle Fillmore believed we should take these affirmations of Jesus and use them for ourselves. And to really understand this at a metaphysical level, we got to know that heaven is the realm of divine ideas. We could say it is divine ideas, where earth is the realm of thoughts and feelings. So we're not meaning a heaven out there or this physical earth. We're thinking of it metaphysically. So we could say it this way. All authority in the realm of divine ideas and in the realm of thoughts and feelings have been given unto me. You are the king or queen, the master of divine ideas and your thoughts and feelings. So let's do a quick overview of the 12 powers. And so I'm going to start this like I often do. So your thing I want you to do is to answer yes. Do you notice you have the ability to believe? Do you notice you have the ability to be strong? Do you notice you have the ability to compare and contrast? Do you notice you have the ability to desire? Do you notice you have the ability to be an authority, to master and control? Do you notice you have the ability to imagine? Do you notice you have the ability to know? Do you notice you have the ability to choose? Do you notice you have the ability to adjust and organize? Do you notice you have the ability to be passionate? Do you notice you have the ability to release and let go that which no longer serves? And lastly, do you notice you have the ability to activate, energize, and vitalize? Well, I think you probably answered yes to everything, to that question or those questions. And so you've proven to yourself you have these 12 abilities based on 12 powers, or what could be called the 12 divine ideas or the 12 principles. You see, everyone has them, whether conscious or not. Everyone is always using them, whether consciously or not. They don't tell you how to use them. They don't care how you use them. They can be overdeveloped or underdeveloped, and they can be used at any level of consciousness. You can use them from victor consciousness, from victim consciousness, from vessel consciousness, from verity consciousness. It's your choice. So this formative faculty, the power of imagination, is important to look at. You've already heard these, and it's good to review. The color is light blue. How do I use this? Well, when I want to activate my imagination, if I'm meeting with a team or through people to develop something new, I'll find something light blue to wear. the disciple is Bartholomew. And we also said the female side of this, developed by Reverend Hammock, pulled that out, would be the women of the light, the people of the women of the oil who brought the oil and could envision it burning for a long time. And so why is this important? Well, whatever scripture Bartholomew appears in, or the women of the oil appear in, that represents thoughts in you and feelings in you. And of course, the location is right there between the eyes, the third eyes. And we find that useful because if we're meditating or quickening that power, we want to imagine that light blue right there. And so what is this ability? It's our ability to visualize. It's our ability to conceptualize. It's our ability to envision. And it's our ability to shape substance. Actually, we don't talk about that one much. And I find now it's probably one of the most important ways to understand our power of imagination. So it's our ability to shape substance. But what does that mean? Well, there's two forms of changeable substance. There's matter. How many of you remember this stuff? Play-Doh. Play-Doh is a form of matter. We could say Play-Doh is a form of substance. And I bet many of you, as I started doing that, kneading it, you were having memories of how it smells and how it feels to move it and mold this substance. Well, as you're bringing that to your mind, you're using your power of imagination to do that, because you're molding the substance of your mind. So there's substance that is really our thoughts and feelings. The very substance of our mind is made up of thoughts and feelings. And we mold that substance all the time. And our ability to mold and shape using our power of imagination, physical matter, and the thoughts and feelings of our mind or consciousness is based on two unchangeable forms of substance. The first one is the definition of substance is actually the divine idea of substance, and it is the idea of form. Charles sometimes said the idea of perfect form. I like to think of it as the idea or the ideal of form. So every organ in your body has a shape and form, and there's an ideal form for each organ of the body. And then there's another definition of substance that doesn't change. And this is a much bigger and broader idea. Substance is the divine idea of the underlying reality of all things. What that means is it's the divine idea of the underlying reality of all things that change. I'll repeat that. It's the underlying reality of all things that are changeable. And so what do you think is the underlying reality of all things that are changeable? Well, it turns out it's divine ideas. In order for a changeable thing to exist, there must be an associated divine idea or divine ideas that are the resource for that thing being expressed. And it isn't the divine expressing it, it's consciousness expressing it. And that process of imagination moves from the abstract and the formless to the concrete and formed. You see, we must learn the law of expression. We're using it all the time, but if we know it, we can use it consciously. And the law of expression is things move, the creative process moves from the abstract to the concrete, from the formless to the formed. And so let's talk about an example, okay? Right there you have a picture of a beautiful garden. In fact, that's a piece of the rose garden located at Unity Village, where I worked for 18 years. And to get that beautiful garden, it starts with at least one divine idea, the divine idea of beauty. And that divine idea of beauty is abstract and formless, isn't it? And so that divine idea of beauty has to be molded by the power of imagination. And that happens in our minds. It happens in our consciousness. And at first we get abstract thoughts and feelings about a garden, don't we? And we kind of have an inner experience of it, just like you had an inner experience of this Play-Doh when I was talking about it. And then as we're having that inner experience of that garden, of those thoughts and feelings about garden, we have images about it, don't we? We're envisioning that garden. We could say we are forming those thoughts and feelings, shaping them, defining them, focusing our thoughts and feelings, refining our thoughts and feelings, specifying and limiting that vague concept of a garden to something very, very, very specific. In fact, in order to build that garden, the builders had to first imagine it and conceptualize it in their consciousness until it became very specific, and then they could build that garden. And building that garden requires action and activity. And whatever it is we're thinking and forming and shaping in our consciousness, if it has to do with something that's its outer world or outer imagined to be possible, dreamed about in the outer, we have to take action or have activity. And so basically, we're using our power of imagination. But the truth is, and the truth always is, we're really working them together, whether we're aware of them or not. So it really begins with desire, doesn't it? And love is our ability to desire and harmonize and unify in some way. And so this beautiful garden started as a desire for gardening. And we had to use life to vitalize this process and zeal to be passionate about it. However, if we didn't have faith, if we didn't believe it was possible, it would stall out right away. And what about strength? It's pretty easy to think and feel about that garden in your mind, but it takes strength to stick with it. And it takes outer strength to build it. And what about discernment? Well, in this process of moving from the abstract to the concrete, we've got to discern some things. We got to do some comparing and evaluating, don't we? And then understanding, we got to know something as we're doing this, don't we? And aren't we making choices all along the way till we get the very specifics in our minds? And then what about dominion? You had to have mastery. You had to have control. You had, or I had, they had authority over the process. And then order. Wow, the process is more orderly than we think about once we get into the detail, right? And not only that, order is the power to adjust. And as we're imagining and figuring out that garden in our thoughts and feelings, we have to make adjustments. And of course, there's release. We got to let go of those things that we wanted, but we know it isn't going to work. For example, I was building a garden in my backyard several years ago. We wanted a koi pond. We started to build that koi pond. And when we got a foot down, we hit bedrock. And so we had to adjust our plans. So the power of order is important, and we had to release the idea of that koi pond. And so any talk about the 12 powers for me isn't complete unless we talk about overdeveloped and underdeveloped use of the power. And the underdeveloped use of the power is a person who isn't very imaginative. They're unimaginative. They cannot envision. They can't move in, or they can't go into a room and visualize what that might look like with their own furniture in it when they're in the process of looking for a new home. Overdeveloped, it can show up as daydreaming. So dreaming is good, daydreaming is good, but always daydreaming is not. So, you remember Peter Pan? He was kind of expressing overdeveloped imagination. He was always daydreaming. And then we can't forget about worry, because worry is kind of an unskilled use of imagination. Now, it may be the unskilled use, but my mother was hyper skilled at worry. I can vouch for that. And then, of course, we wouldn't move into fear unless we were imagining an outcome. You might recall that fear is false expectations appearing real. And that's because we've made those images of what might happen very real in our consciousness. And this is also a good time to remind you that, first of all, fear isn't all bad. And second of all, contrary to what we've all been taught, fear is not the opposite of love. Fear is not even separate from love, because we can think of fear as an expression of love. Now, you might be scratching your head if you haven't heard this before, but if you just reflect on this for a few moments. Whenever you're fearful, it's because you're afraid something's going to happen to you, whom I hope you love. Something's going to happen to a friend or a relative whom I expect you love. Or maybe you're afraid something's going to happen to something you own or your things. Here in the Midwest, this time of year, there can be a bit of fear level for tornadoes, because we take our imagination and we're afraid of what might happen. And so as we're moving forward in this time, we can use that power of imagination in uplifting and well-developed ways to imagine the days before us as we are moving out of this COVID time. And as a community, you want to use your power of imagination balanced with all the other powers to imagine and reimagine what Unity of Kitchener, and I have Ottawa here because that's who I thought I was going to be speaking for, but for any church to be using their power of imagination to shape and reshape what your spiritual community is going to be. And we've had such new and different experiences that we don't have to make it up exactly the way we used to. We can start with a blank slate. And friends, that is done with your formative faculty. And I hope whenever you're moving forward with something new, you remember this faculty and you choose to use it consciously. And especially today, I hope you use your power of imagination to make it another beautiful day in your consciousness. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
a dream where there is no you, there is no me, only we. I have a dream, there is no fear, there is no war, only peace, where love prevails and we live in harmony. I have a dream, I have a dream. Will you take my hand, and side by side we'll work together to make this dream reality. I have a dream.
Wow. I invite you to take a deep breath and let it out. And close your eyes if you so choose, as you sit comfortably right where you are. And maybe take another deep, calming, connecting breath. The truth is, whenever we're imagining, we are dreaming of the next thing. We are visualizing and conceptualizing what that next thing's going to be. A lot of it during a day is mundane. What clothes I'm going to wear, what food I'm going to eat. Just what am I going to do today? If it's a work day, it's one thing. If it's an off day, I certainly hope it's a play day. I hope you are really getting it and understanding we're always using our power of imagination. And we're always moving from desire to desire to desire. And so as we use our power of imagination to shape substance, we want to do it wisely. We want to use it in a way that we support ourselves and others. And most of all, I hope and trust you are using your power of imagination to visualize and conceptualize what you look like, what you think like, and what you do when you're coming from the highest awareness of your innate divinity. Remember, because you are innately divine, you can make and remake your humanity any way you choose. In our divinity, we are identical. In our humanity, we are wondrously and gloriously distinct. And so as we go into a time of silence, as we invest some time in the silence, go in reflecting on who you want to be and what you want to do to demonstrate your divinity. And so I invite you now to repeat after me. I am divine. I am uniquely human. I am the power of imagination and so much more. I use imagination to be the very best I can be. Let's say that again. I use my imagination to be the best I can be. And one more time with zeal. Let's say it zealiciously. I use my imagination to be the best I can be. And so you are, and so I am, and so it is. Amen. And another deep breath, and maybe another. And if you've had your eyes closed, feel free to open them anytime you want. Knowing you are divine and human, and so it is.
I am healed, whole, and healthy. I relax and visualize
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Reverend Paul. That was wow, a great message. I love that you brought imagination into all of the other faculties. It all sort of reminds me that through the whole year, probably each one integrates on each other, and we can each take one and then involve the other ones as well. And I know from taking your 12 Powers class how much you take fairly complex ideas and thoughts and make them into everyday language for us to better understand. So we so thank you for that talk and for being here and for joining us on Sunday morning. And I hope that you will come and join us again, because it's always just our pleasure to have you here. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Always blessed by having you.